Hi, I'm Fábio.
And I'm Johnna.
Ciao, come stai?
Oi, tudo bem?
Konnichiwa.
Bonjour.
Como estás? Buenos dias.
안녕하세요.
Salam alaikum.
Ni hao. Welcome to the Cultural Fusion Podcast.
Welcome to the Cultural Fusion Podcast. My name is Fábio, and as always, I'm here with...
Johnna. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. And Johnna, how are you doing today?
Really well. It was so great to have 16 days with the girls home. They'll go back to school tomorrow. And for once in our lives, we didn't travel. We did a staycation.
That's right. And actually, they go back, and 6 weeks after they having class, what do you have?
Another vacation,
Oh,
another 2 weeks.
no. Welcome to France.
Yeah, but that's fun. We've learned a little bit about how to
Yep.
get our rhythm.
Yeah, every
going.
6 weeks, 2 weeks, pause.
How are you?
Yeah, great. Thank you for asking. I'm enjoying here my tea and just talking to you. It's fun. And I just want to, again, thank you, everyone for listening to the Cultural Fusion Podcast, everyone that basically texts us on WhatsApp, Instagram. Yes, please leave your comments on either Spotify or YouTube and follow us on Instagram, Cultural Fusion 21. And today's episode, Johnna, is about something everyone who lives abroad knows very, very well. Guess what?
And usually loves so much. Bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy, no.
So please catch our other 3 episodes if you haven't yet. But now we're going to dive into bureaucracy. What are your experiences with bureaucracy? Have you had good ones, bad ones, everything in between? And how about you, Fabio?
Yes. Paperwork, stamps, missing documents, offices that close exactly when you arrive. Have you ever experienced some of these situations and contexts? Bureaucracy is like a cultural experience nobody signs up for, but everyone gets anyway. So if you have ever dealt with bureaucracy as a foreigner, if paperwork made you feel vulnerable, number 1, 2, frustrated, number 2, number 3, powerless, if there were moments when you felt less intelligent simply because you couldn't express yourself fully in another language, you are in the right podcast, Johnna.
Yep, you're in the right place with us today. We're going to tell lots of stories.
Yes, let's just hear some of these stories and experiences. We'd love to hear from you, listeners. But Johnna, go ahead, share some of these stories if you have something, because I know you have some of these experiences, positive or negatives.
Well, since we live in France, the very first thing that comes to mind is we were in Annecy and we went to the prefecture to get our paperwork turned in. And you know how many cultures stand in line and then other cultures do lines a little bit differently, right?
Yep.
Well, you probably remember as well as I do. I think we stood in line for about an hour.
That's right.
And as soon as the doors opened, what happened, Fabio?
Who cares who got here first?
They just went right past us. We couldn't believe it. That was our first culture shock in bureaucracy moments.
That was a very interesting experience.
2018, I think it was.
That's right. Well, with that in mind, I want to ask you, what was the first bureaucratic shock you experienced after moving abroad? Or did anyone warn you beforehand how complicated things would be? I'm not sure, Johnna.
I don't think so.
Wow.
My first overseas experience was Japan in 1999, for really staying over. But I do have that crazy experience when I was visiting. I remember this big one. One of my biggest stories in this area is there were 70 people in a choir. Yeah. And we went from Czech Republic to Poland to Russia. And we took an overnight train from Poland to Russia. And when we hit the border at 2 a.m.,
no way.
the guards came on the train, and I think they were Russian guards, but I don't know for sure. And they knocked on everyone's door. They woke us up at 2 a.m. They checked all our passports. And even though we had prepared for the trip and everybody had paid for visas and the right to cross the border, they asked for an additional 20 euros per head.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just 70 choir members. It was 70 choir members plus 30 alumni from my school. And they took our choir director into a car with, a train car, and maybe two other leaders, and they didn't hold them at gunpoint, but they had guns on their bodies, and they made them pay 20 per person. So whatever that is, 20 times 80. So they got an additional amount when we crossed the border. That was interesting.
Ooh, that was
that's
a
my big one.
very interesting experience, Joanna. And I really wish we could hear our listeners' answers for questions such as, what document did you discover only after moving?
Right. Well, in that case, that was like illegal. I mean, I don't think there's no way we could have known about that, you know?
Exactly. Something you
that was
didn't
a
even know
surprise.
existed.
Yeah.
So when looking back, you know what? I think it's very interesting. What has bureaucracy taught you about? Joanna? That's a good question. I want to
Yeah.
ask you, listeners. So have you been learning something through this whole process? For instance, patience, humility, resilience, for sure, perseverance. Yes, I'd love to hear your voice as well. Leave your comments.
Do you have this phrase in Portuguese? That which doesn't kill you only makes you stronger.
That's correct.
So you can look at it as a learning opportunity. I mean, any struggle in life could be potentially
Absolutely.
a growth opportunity.
So share your stories or frustrations and even the funny moments. You are not alone in this. You are not alone in this at all. And let me share one of my earliest and most memorable experiences, Joanna. Back in 2004, by the way, when I first went to Canada, the Canadian officers, believe me or not, Marco, forgot to stamp my passport when I entered the country at the airport. Oh no, nightmare. I had no idea, Joanna. No idea. At that time, I had no idea this would become a problem. Later, when it was time to renew my student visa, I had to leave Canada to do it. So I went from Toronto to Buffalo, New York, because you have to be outside the country to renew the visa.
Yeah, so far it's logical.
Well, I arrived at the US border. The American officer looked at my passport and said, "Hey, you need to go back to Canada. You don't have a Canadian entry stamp."
Even though you had a US visa?
Exactly. He said, "You can't come into the US until Canada fixes this." So back I went to Canada, got the stamp, then returned to Buffalo, and finally made it to the Canadian consulate.
Problem solved, right?
Nope. Surprise! When I went to renew my student visa, they told me they couldn't find my medical exams.
No way.
Yes, those exact ones. I said, how could I have a student visa if I didn't do the medical exam?
Right.
The officer apologized and said, well, there is nothing we can do. Go back to Canada and we'll try to find them.
No way.
I went back to Toronto, visited immigration offices 2 or 3 times, and nothing, absolutely nothing happened. I was about to lose my legal status, Joanna. And then couldn't continue my students in Canada and had no answers.
How did it end?
Well, this is my favorite part. My mom, always moms, saving our lives. My mom in Brazil called the Canadian consulate in São Paulo. Well, this was back, Joanna, when phones had those rotating dials. You remember that? She had to turn the dial 3 times just to get the number 3. Dring, dring, dring. Somehow, incredibly, a real human answered the phone, which almost never happened. This officer listened to my mom, heard the whole story, and took it seriously.
Wow, like an actual angel.
Yeah, that's right.
A real helper.
They finally found my medical exams. Do you know where? You know where?
I know.
You know.
Trinidad and Tobago.
Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, of course they did. They had accidentally sent my file there. In the end, they issued me a visa that was much longer than I needed.
But they were going for Toronto, right? Like
Yes.
so Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, I think for Brazil, actually. I don't know. Got lost.
But I think it's the letters, the T.
Well,
Perhaps, maybe.
Have no clue. And you know what happened? They even sent me a check, about $150 to cover my expenses. Woof.
Yeah, that might be one of the happiest bureaucracy endings ever. But
Oh my goodness.
But where was it in that story where you were going to go visit your friend Danny in New York? That's part of that story, right?
No, that's a different one.
What
Oh
happened
my
there?
goodness, that was even worse.
That's also Canada.
Oh my gosh, that was back in 2000. This one was in 2004, 2005. I forgot about that one, Johnna.
That's
No
just
way.
crazy. Yeah.
That was the worst one. I got an American visa to go and see my friend in New York. And I was in Canada. But I didn't know I was supposed to go to the United States while I was in Canada.
Yeah.
Oh,
It had to be during that time.
absolutely.
Yeah.
During that period. I didn't know.
And you went at the end.
At the end. You know what?
So what happened?
I got there. They said, you can't come in. Say, no way. I'm here. My friend is waiting for me. And she was living in New York. She was coming to pick me up in the airport. Everything was ready. Brazilian barbecue. And the American officer said, you can't come into the United States. But I said, I have an American visa. I said, no. You're in Canada. You were supposed to come before. You have to fly back to Brazil. I said, no. How about my friend? Guess what? I left a message when there was just the answer machine. You remember those days? So I said, hey, Danny, you're going to come here. You're not going to find me because I have to fly back to Brazil. And then guess what? She left her key. She went back to her place. She got my message. And then she didn't come to
I didn't know the key story. That's amazing. But yeah, before cell phones, it was a lot more complicated.
Wow. That was insane. Yes, and yes, Johnna.
Do you have any more that come to mind?
Well, go ahead. I think I have a couple of more stories here. But if you want to share some of your positive stories.
Yeah, well, I have one really positive one. And then I want to talk about language as well and how language plays.
Absolutely.
So the first one, though, this isn't about language. I was in Belgium in like 2007. And I stayed a year studying French. And normally when you're going to renew a visa after a year, you have to leave the country. But somehow the man that was in charge of the school, he would go in for me to the prefecture in this little town, Banneux, Belgium, and he renewed it for me. And I just found that to be very helpful and unbelievable. Like, I haven't really had that happen very often. But also related to that is driver's licenses. So I've had two crazy experiences. In Belgium, I had to leave my U.S. driver's license when I got my Belgian one, and they kept it for me until my whole 3 years that I lived in Belgium. And then when I left the country, they gave me back my U.S. one when I turned in my Belgian one.
Yep.
And that already was scary because leaving an American, we don't travel with our passport. We travel with our driver's license as if it's our main piece of identity. It's like an identity card. So that was very scary to leave that, but they did give it back. Then when I got to France, and getting my driver's license in France is a whole nother story. But once I got it, I had to exchange my driver's license again, my American one. But this time they said, we're not going to give it back to you.
No
so
way.
I no longer have a U.S. driver's license. And it's my only document for identity. Yeah.
Well, I don't have my driver's license for Brazil either. I just came back from Brazil and I had to just go and use my French driver's license. And guess what? I have to stay only, I think, 3 months maximum, stay in Brazil, using my French driver's license. But you know what? I came to the airport and I said to the officer, how can any police officer know I'm in Brazil less than 3 months because you don't stamp my passport? She said, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes they don't even know the answer. It's true. If you're outside the box, they don't always know. So let's talk about language, Fabio.
Language,
Can you
go ahead.
think, traveling with me, I know sometimes we're like, which language should we use? And we have to be kind of thoughtful, right, in the process. So I can think of a time when it didn't work very well. Do you know what I'm going to tell?
I remember a nightmare.
Was it Colombia?
He was Colombia, and Marco is here from Colombia, but that is nothing to do with the Colombians. Actually, we were in Ecuador going to Colombia,
that's what it
or
was.
vice versa.
So we were actually maybe in Ecuador, and it was no hablo mucho español.
Es verdad.
Correcto, no? And so,
especially in the airport, you can't play around. Don't try to practice your language when you were talking about bureaucracy, please.
Yeah, so something happened in the system and we got an email about luggage, but the man told you that something changed with our flight And so when he said to you,
Yep.
hey, did you get this email
Yes.
about the flight change? What did I say?
Ah,
Ah, sí, claro que sí.
and I said, no, of course not. Claro que no.
Because I didn't know he was asking about the other type
And
of
do you
email.
know what he
I
said?
thought he was talking about the luggage. What did he say?
Tu esposa ha dicho que sí, but your wife has said yes.
Yes.
And what did I say?
He said, she doesn't speak Spanish. That was very intense. I think you got
It was
silent.
one of her worst fights.
Yeah, you gave me silent treatment for like the first hour on the flight. But we also saw the Ecuadorians helped us so much. They
Yeah.
took our bags and
That's
walked us
right.
all the way to the gate.
Oh my goodness.
And
we made the
beautiful
plane.
service. But I think it was complicated because there was some rule about traveling with the kids. I remember that Latin America trip, you always had to have permission
Yep.
from both parents
Oh
to
my
take the kids out of the
goodness.
country. Lots of
Oh.
paperwork for you young
Yes.
parents out there. Make sure you know what you're doing
Yep.
when you leave the country, especially if you leave without the father or mother,
Yep.
the other parent. Yeah,
Bureaucracy.
it's complicated.
And do you remember we traveled with the Julia, and Julia has Brazilian, Spanish,
Yeah, I wrote
and
that one
US
down.
passport. But her Brazilian passport was expired, and Americans, they didn't need to have any visa to go to Brazil at that time. So I said, you know what? She's gonna go to Brazil today as an American citizen. And then,
He did not like that.
oh my gosh, we got there.
He said, well, then where's her Brazilian
that's
passport?
correct. I said, at home.
And do you when you
At
tell the
home in
story
France.
and when you tell the story, do you usually add, and my wife told me to take the Brazilian passport, but I decided not to.
No, bureaucracy is already enough. Well, today we are talking about bureaucracy, not just the frustration, but the stories, the humor, and the lessons you only learn by living between cultures or experiencing the bureaucracy, and maybe how to survive it with your sanity and always sense of humor intact, even if you have to laugh a few months later or years later.
Yeah, it's good to laugh later, but it's really hard sometimes to laugh in the moment.
Yeah, John, I think bureaucracy actually seriously goes far beyond paperwork.
Yeah.
We are talking about these situations, context, but it really affects us emotionally and mentally. How has red tape impacted your stress level or sense of belonging? Have you ever had a moment in France, Japan, or Belgium, or in Canada, when I was in Canada or Spain, when paperwork or a process tied to it made you think, maybe I do not belong here? I do not belong here. For example, I remember when you failed your driver's license test in Japan, John.
Yeah, that's a fun story. Did we? I don't know if we already shared this one, but that one, it's because I first trained in Japan and then we took a trip to South Korea.
That's right.
And in Japan, you drive on the left side, but in South Korea, you drive on the right side, which is what I grew up with.
That's correct.
So I was all trained in Japan, but for some reason I think it was 2 weeks in South Korea, it switched my brain. So when I went back to take the test, I turned into the wrong lane.
No way.
Yeah. I went into the right lane instead of the left because we had just ridden in taxis on the right side of the road. And so then that was really complicated. That was my first time. Then my second time, I didn't pass because I went too slow.
No way.
Oh, no, too fast. The third time because I went too slow.
No way.
And then I finally got it my fourth time. But that was a huge identity problem for me because I couldn't believe it. I mean, I had been driving since I was 15.
Yep.
And here I was, how old? 37, 40, 40 something. And I couldn't pass.
Oh, and you feel powerless.
Yeah, absolutely.
You feel less like intelligent.
Oh, yeah, I cried. Every time I didn't pass, I cried and had to deal with like that whole feeling of who am I?
Yes.
I'm a failure.
Who am I?
I'm a failure.
Oh.
That's how I felt.
Well, I remember flying intercontinental from Canada to Brazil. I stopped to see a friend in Switzerland. Then I went to Barcelona. At that point, my flight wasn't considered intercontinental anymore. Before heading back to Brazil, I had a horrible surprise that kind of never experienced before. It was 2005, Johnna.
It's the luggage.
I went to check in my luggage, like I always did when flying. I was flying to Toronto, and then told me someone, you have to pay $1,000.
No.
What? Can you believe that? So That was basically in the middle of Zurich airport, opening my luggage and having to leave most of my clothes and belongings behind. Can you imagine the middle of the airport in Zurich, Switzerland? I started wearing as many layers as I could to save some items and, clothes as much as possible, stuff that I could put into my computer bag.
Yeah, but I have to say, don't try this at home because someone did get arrested for
Really?
wearing too many pairs of pants
No
and
way.
too many shirts on something like Ryanair.
No way.
Yeah.
Probably. I was very innocent back
Yeah.
to 2005, But the funny thing is, when I got back to Brazil, my mom asked me, "What about that sweater I gave you and those pants you bought in Canada?" I had to tell her I left everything in Zurich. So guess what? When I asked the staff at the airport at that time if they could donate the clothes, they said no.
No.
We have to throw away everything. We have to throw them away.
Wow.
So that's just insane. Well, friends, bureaucracy, not just in offices, but also at the airports when you travel or live abroad.
How about that time we got separated in Canada?
No way. That's crazy. Well, actually, I have two different names because in my Spanish passport, my name is Fábio Souza Muniz, and my Brazilian and American passports is just Fábio Muniz.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know. I was learning how to travel using my different passports, and I booked my flight using my European passport. So I had a very bad surprise when I got to Canada, or I was traveling from Canada to the United States. I don't know. And
No,
then,
I think we were going to Canada.
yeah,
And we stopped somewhere in between, maybe Toronto.
yeah,
And then you couldn't continue to
Yeah.
Montreal. I had to continue just
Yeah.
with the girls.
because they said something.
You
Do
lost-
you have a e-visa, or Europeans have
Oh.
to apply online.
That's what it
to have a certain
was.
permit.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I have never heard about it. And they said, you can't come in. And I said, I have my American passport. And they said, you booked your flight using your Spanish name. You can't come in. I couldn't. I had to book a different flight. And you guys went to, I don't know, New York or
Montreal.
Montreal.
Yeah.
Yes.
We waited for you there. We
And then-
we arrived almost, a few hours apart. We just waited for you at the airport.
Yeah, but I think the most recent and painful bureaucratic experience I had was renewing my oldest daughter's Brazilian passport. She already had several passports, so Brazilian passports. So I thought it'd be a straightforward process. But at that consulate in Paris, they told me, your name, Johnna, didn't match what was written on her Brazilian birth certificate or
Yeah.
our marriage certificate.
But I can't remember why.
Yeah, by the way, we have 3 marriage certificates, one for Spain, one for the US, one for the Brazilian documents. Anyways,
Yeah.
one of them.
That's a tip. That's a tip for you listeners. If you have done that legal move of, either paxe or getting married, it does help to do something like that in each place. You just go to the consulate or the embassy, and you ask them to kind of do your paperwork for you, and that'll make things a little smoother. Because we know we've been able to help some people with
Absolutely.
that. Yeah,
That's the
and that's helped us a
bureaucracy.
lot.
Absolutely.
And
Even-
also, when the kids are born,
Yes.
if you have a bicultural situation, go where the guardian, go to each of the places. So, let's say it's a Colombian and French or something like that. You go to each consulate, and then they're born in Thailand. Go to the Colombian consulate, go to the French consulate, and get the kid those citizenships early on.
That's correct.
And that'll really help
That's
with the
right.
bureaucracy later.
When Julia was born in
It's a good
Japan,
tip.
for instance, so I said to you the same week, because
Yeah.
we had a Japanese birth certificate, I went to every single consulate.
Yeah.
Spanish, Brazilian, and American consulate.
Yes.
And we did immediately
Yeah.
their birth certificate in Spanish, American, English, of course, and Portuguese, Brazilian.
Yeah, it costs
So,
some money usually,
well,
but it's worth it.
but it's even cheaper
save you
because
time.
because you don't need to translate
No.
the original document that, by the way, was Japanese.
Yeah.
Because we were in Japan,
Right.
going to those consulate.
That's nice.
If we left Japan and later went to those consulate, we were supposed to translate from Japanese into English, Portuguese, and Spanish. But anyways, back to what I was saying, I explained to the staff that Sophia, had multiple passports already issued over the years.
From the same consulate or from the same
Well,
country.
different consulates.
Yeah.
So, but she had
The same country.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the response was shocking in its simplicity. Yes, mistakes were made before, but from now on, you have to correct her name. Talk about your name, Johnna, on the birth certificate to match your marriage certificate. Anyways, I asked how to do that. And the answer was, chan, you have to go in person to the Brazilian consulate in Miami. Say, no!
Because that's where the mistake was made?
Yes!
Yeah.
That's when the nightmare began. I tried everything. I called notaries in Brasilia, Brazil, the capital. I contacted offices everywhere, every single Brazilian consulate in Paris, Marseille, Geneva. I emailed the consulate countless times, even in Miami, Paris, Geneva. No one really knew what to do. Everyone passed the responsibility along. It felt like the system itself didn't know how the system worked. Then, almost by accident, something unexpected happened. I was traveling in Iceland when Iceland.
I don't remember this
Welcome
part.
to multicultural life. When my flight was delayed. And thankfully, the airline gave me a voucher.
Okay.
And the amount was just enough to book a flight to Miami.
That's amazing.
I thought maybe this is my only chance. I emailed the consulate, explaining everything, and flew to Miami. When I arrived, my name, Johnna, do you remember that? Wasn't on the list outside the building. More bureaucracy. The officer asked me, do you have an appointment? So I said, I have emails. Because there is nothing on the website for my situation. I just came from France yesterday. I'm here. Honestly, I thought they wouldn't let me in, Johnna. After some hesitations and talking to these folks, he looked at me and said, okay, come in, Fabio. I stay less than 48 hours in the US. My travel time was longer than the time I actually spent in the country. Inside, they finally corrected your name, Johnna, on the birth certificate. I felt relief for about 5 minutes. And then, do you know what happened?
No.
I asked if they could also issue her passport there because she needed to go to Brazil for a surgery.
That's
Do you know
right.
the answer? They
No.
said, I'm so sorry. You now have the correct document, sir. But you have to go back to France to make the passport.
But
because
why?
your wife needs to sign this paper. Say,
That's crazy. I
It
forgot all
was
that.
insane. So much pain, so much time, so much energy. No one ever said this is how it works from the beginning.
So here's a question. Do you think that emotional intelligence is important when it comes to bureaucracy? What do you think people should do? Like deep breathing and... you need to stay calm in these lines, right? Because I know
Absolutely.
you've had some situations where it's been hard.
I think so.
And
Think
both of
this-
us, actually. I mean,
this one. Wow.
yeah. Sometimes if you start hitting that wall with the bureaucracy, it can just make you kind of feel insane.
Absolutely.
Especially, I know a lot of our friends in France, they go and they read online, these are all the papers
Yep.
you need. And then they show up at the prefecture and then
Yep.
they say, oh, but you also need this.
Yes.
And you think, that can't be.
Yep.
I mean, I have everything on the list. And they say, yeah, but in your situation, you also need this. And it's enough. Like people can just go crazy. You can explode in anger there.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of it's a lesson and a challenge to grow in emotional intelligence. And hopefully, we just have to remember like what your mom says.
Yeah.
If there's something, if you have a bad day, did anyone get hurt?
Yeah.
Is anyone hurt? Is everyone still alive and healthy and well? Sometimes you have to put things into perspective with bureaucracy.
That's correct, Joanna.
Yeah.
With that said, before we close our topic, what has actually helped you, listeners, the most along the way? Do you rely on lawyers or legal advisors when things get complicated? Have Facebook groups or online communities been useful or something confusing?
Yeah.
How important to have friends, local contacts, or informal networks being in this process? Have associations or expat organizations played a role for you? For those listening, by the way, who might be in Lyon, do you think space like Cultural Fusion or similar communities, Kotopo, really help
Yoon.
navigate not just paperwork, but belonging? Jenna, go ahead.
Well, and Singa, we love these places. Well, I do want to add, if you live in the Lyon area, we can give you a lawyer, Bruno, who speaks Portuguese, French, and English. You can sign up at the Bar Association in Lyon for a free consultation in most categories. I don't think they can do much help with immigration, but if you do need a lawyer in the area, we've got Karine, who is bilingual in French and English, and for 15 euros an hour, she's helped many people that might even be listening to this. She's helped people get their paperwork. She's helped me get my driver's license in France. Because not only did I have trouble getting my Japanese license, I also had a huge issue getting my driver's license in France. It took 4 times because I did it the first time and then it expired. You know, there's like all these expiration dates, and it wasn't me. I turned in the paperwork with the like 3-month deadline, you know, listed on it. And then it because it takes so long, then it delayed and it got too late. It expired. And then I have to ask them to reopen and all that stuff. So Korean helped me on the 4th time get my driver's license. And I navigated through COVID. And so, yeah, those are some people, you know, write us if you need suggestions for support. And then, like we said, Singa, Yoon, Kotopo, Cultural Fusion. Find people from your country who have already gone through the process, and you will have a much easier time. On Facebook, you can go to Expats in Lyon. They answer a million questions related to bureaucracy. And just text us if you have more ideas. I know there's a lot of Brazilian groups as well. That's great. So I have another question, Fabio. What do you do when the rules change, you know, and you're in the middle of the process, or you've already done it one way and then everything changes?
Wow.
And this is my last story. My mom just went to Brazil.
Yes.
So for years, we've gone to Brazil and we've never needed a visa.
A visa, yep.
But all of a sudden, since like April,
you
need a visa to get to Brazil. Well, we booked her flight forgetting that. My sister got her flight, and she couldn't get the e-visa. And she couldn't get the e-visa on time.
Yeah.
So, and that was through
But guess what?
We went through Miami.
We see already a gap there. When she was getting the flight, it was supposed to be and say, hey, if you book this flight, you have to have visa.
Like the airline should have said
Absolutely.
that. I didn't think about it. Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yep.
But maybe on the flip side, even if you're used to going to a certain country, just check if the rules have changed, because we chose not to go to China because of the cost of the visa. It was more expensive than our flight for the American visa.
That's correct.
The Spanish visa could get in, I think, no problem. But we ended up not going. And then, like, always check later. You know, maybe now it's a different price.
And today for Brazilians, it's absolutely free.
Right, so that changed.
For a year, changed. Just recently changed.
So you always have to do your homework.
So we can go to China, me and the girls, and you stay at home.
Not me. It's still probably 185 euros to go to China or something like that. Well, I don't know. There's got to be a way.
But your mom was able to get into Brazil.
Yeah, exactly. So with some patience, she just they bought the extra, and this might be helpful too. My sister called the airline and said, how can I make this ticket refundable? And they said, okay, for $100, you can make it refundable. And so that's what she did. Then she got the money back, and then she rebooked once the visa came in.
That's right.
So that was really cool. So there are positive stories. You have to be very flexible. If I'm going to give any advice on bureaucracy, be flexible, work on emotional intelligence, take lots of deep breaths, eat. Like if I go to the prefecture, I have to have eaten a big breakfast. You know me. Eat food, drink water. It's the basics. Get sleep, and it will really help your bureaucracy.
Drink lots of water.
And ask questions.
Practice yoga, meditation.
And ask questions like of people from your same situation, you know. We have lots of friends who are married to French partners. They have a bonus when they live in France because hopefully the French partner can find out things that a lot of the foreigners can't find out. So ask a friend who's, inside or who has the inside.
That's right.
Information.
Yeah, and Johnna, before with that said, before your final words,
Yes.
and even thank our partners.
Yes.
And I know you like to say this summary because you love the low context and summarize what we have been speaking so far. So it's just a small joke, but it captures the feeling of red tape perfectly. Slow, frustrating, and making you feel a little powerless. By the way, in Portuguese, my mother language, the word of bureaucracy is burocracia. Bureaucracia, which comes from Latin and is used in many languages. But here's a funny thing, Johnna. I like to think. In Portuguese, burro means
Sounds like donkey.
donkey, yes, the animal. And it's also used to call someone dumb. So sometimes when I'm struggling with endless forms and rules, you're just asking, what do you do, Fábio? I like to play with the word and call it bureaucracia. Bureaucracia. Bureaucracy, right? Combining burro, donkey, dumb with cracia. So because dealing with bureaucracy often feels as stubborn, confusing, or just plain frustrating as a stubborn donkey.
That's
there
right.
we go. So with that in mind, Johnna, I just want to ask you to summarize what I have
All right.
said
Well,
so far.
my final phrase to go with your bureaucracy
Gracia,
is don't get bitter, get better.
That's right.
So,
That's great.
and that's hard for me because I think there is something to say when you have a lot of bad bureaucracy all, back to back to back, you start to get really run down.
That's right.
But like we say, now we're back to that main theme, somehow take that and let that help you become a better person and learn the resilience from it. But with support, of course. I mean, it's not just do it on your own. Okay, so what have we talked about? We've talked about lots of random things, but there are some categories. One is positive bureaucracy situations, things that actually worked out. And then negative bureaucracy situations. We've talked about those. We've talked about language. Know the language that you're in. Know the power language that you need to work in where you are. Like sometimes, and this is maybe just separate, but Fabio's reminded me that if I'm having a miscommunication with someone in French, sometimes it's helpful to go to English because it just creates a different power dynamic because now I'm suddenly back in my native language. And as long as they understand a little bit, sometimes that can help. Now, use it wisely. Don't use it to lord over someone. But language can be really an important part of bureaucracy as well. And maybe try one, and if it doesn't work, try another language. Try to connect with their native language when you're working with that person. So how does language, and then what do you do with changes? So be flexible, and also do your homework. Do your due diligence. Get your help if it needs to be a lawyer, a free consultation, one of our groups, write us. We can actually ask all these groups there's over 1,000 people that we're in contact with on WhatsApp that can help answer your questions. So don't be shy.
Yes.
Don't try to do it on your own because you won't be able to get the full scope of all the challenges. So that's my word of encouragement today. We don't have it figured out. Tomorrow we could have another horrible bureaucratic situation. We never know when it's going to hit. And carry your driver's license when you're driving, right, Fabio?
No, that's a different story. Maybe next time.
Bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy, yeah. Well. So
ask Fabio about that one.
Yes, that's right. You want to say thank you all
Thank
the partners?
you. I want to thank
Also,
a particularly special person, Leticia from Brasserie de Brotteaux. We know you follow a lot of what we're doing, and it was so great to meet you in person recently. So thank you. And we also want to thank Cozy Coffee, who welcomes us every Saturday and helps us with 12 to 15 people studying Spanish together and speaking it. And for all you native speakers that help with our activities, you Portuguese speakers that are helping in the Portuguese group, we've got Mandarin, Japanese, Spanish, English, French, Italian, German. You all, by using your skills and giving us your native language or your almost native language, you're helping a lot of people get better at languages.
And Puzzle Cafe. Don't forget
And Puzzle Cafe, Toma!
Woohoo! Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
So much for listening. And please share this episode, this podcast to people who absolutely may identify to these stories. So I'd love to hear also your stories. So please share your experience with Bureaucracy in the comments or Gracia. Yeah, I know you understand. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Cultural Fusion 21, YouTube and Spotify for more episodes. And we can't wait to see you next time.
See you soon. Come visit us in person at our cafe on Tuesdays. French conversation on Tuesday nights. Puzzle Cafe on Thursday mornings.
Yes.
English at La Cloche. English at République on Saturday mornings at 10. And Cozy Coffee at noon.
And how can you find
and
us?
And Japanese at
How can you
Kotopo
find
on
us?
Wednesday nights.
Hey.
Halo. H-E-Y-L-O. See you there. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, I'm Fábio.
And I'm Johnna.
Ciao, come stai?
Oi, tudo bem?
Konnichiwa.
Bonjour.
Como estás? Buenos dias.
Annyeonghaseyo.
Salam alaikum.
Ni hao. Welcome to the Cultural Fusion Podcast.